time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand. With your hosts, Reilly, Newman, and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
And welcome back to another round of Brandy, or should I say Rebrandy, because today is all about rebranding. And Scott and I are going to be going over what rebranding is in our kind of point of view and our perspective on it, and where a lot of businesses might have misconceptions about what a rebrand truly is. So we're actually going to be trying to rebranding in this episode.
Rebrand. Yeah, that term, that word, rebrand, is just something that's so loosely thrown out. It's a hot key buzzword, right? A lot of big marketing agencies use it all the time. Oh, you just need to rebrand. Oh, we just rebrand.
Yeah.
And we've talked in the past, about rebranding and the importance of rebranding and the power behind it, and what. And it may not be something for everybody, and when to do it. And we've given pointers on, like the type of scenarios when a rebrand would be appropriate. But I think today, right, we're going to focus more on changing the perception, changing how we think about that word and what it means for us and for what we do with brands in general.
This one's going to be a little different of a ride because we're going from everything from Nicolas Cage to Crocs and Thermodynamics and Lego. And we're going to kind of be looking at these through the lens of rebranding and what that means, because all of these, there is a common thread where you have this change and this transformation happening. And to really start, it's like we'll start with Crocs, because this brand has evolved so far from when it first started, where essentially when they first came out, people were making fun of them, and now all the younger generations wearing them, and the brand is fully
cool. They're back in
position.
They're back in style,
and they're releasing all these different colors and combinations, and then they have the little things you can attach to them now, and those sell and a lot, and they sell them for I think like $2 each. But it's become really popular, and the brand has fully just made this kind of resurrection
transition. Yeah. And I think we should start off by saying, look, maybe we should start by kind of putting into perspective how we view that word rebrand, because a lot of people just think, oh, it means changing your logo. Oh, it means just, because a lot of times we'll be like, hey, I need a new logo, I need a rebrand.
Yeah.
And so I think the common misconception is that rebranding involves just a visual overhaul. And that is part of it, but it's not it in its entirety. Right. And the reason is, and you've heard us preach this from the mountaintops, is that to understand what branding is, business is transactional, branding is relational. It is it's not concrete. It's something that's always changing, evolving. It is it's the relationship you have with your audience that the business has. That's the brand. It's made up, yes, of the visual components, but it's also everything from how you answer the phone to other touch points, other ways, the start to finish transaction and experience the customer has with your business. That's part of the brand. But really, if brand is like a relationship with your audience, right? Relationships in general are based on our experiences, our perceptions.
Yeah.
And so really when you were looking at, and moving forward in this podcast, we're going to be talking about rebranding, but rephrase that word to be perception, because that's for us where the crux of it is changing the perception of the business to the audience. And that, if you realize that, then if you think about that, then you understand why, for starters, it's not just about a new logo.
Yep.
Because that goes beyond perception of the business.
And so when you think of perception is extremely subjective. We can have different perceptions about the same thing. We can look at, the same object and both perceive it differently. And like Scott was saying with relationships are completely really relative to your specific kind of relationship to that thing or to that person. And so the same thing with brands is that you do have that relationship. Just like I could have a relationship with a certain brand that varies from Scott's relationship to that brand. And the transactions could be the same. We could both buy the same product, but the relationship is different because it is relative, it's subjective, and it's based off that perception. And so even like with Crocs, it's like going back to that is the Crocs brand, they didn't do a full rehaul of the identity. They didn't do any of that. They still have the little crocodile, but the perception and the relationship with the audience has completely transformed.
Yeah.
Where now it is a desired product. Now it is, something that people want to wear and not just wear
well, and it used
for gardening or something.
And maybe I'm off on this, but I remember when Crocs first came on the scene. It was just they had colors. They had various colors, but the shoe itself remained the same, right?
Yep.
And then I think when they came back into style more recently, that's when their method of going. We talk about customizing. The people that are wearing Crocs love expressing unique personalities. So how can we make these even more personal, unique, and so that's when all these add-ons, the little snap-on buttons that go in all the holes in Crocs. When Crocs first dropped, I don't remember. Again, wasn't a big Croc, but I don't remember that being part of it. And that seems to be the new component of today's brand of Crocs.
Yep.
Is that, and that's why they're succeeding so well, is because they've changed through what they offer. They've altered the perception of the brand. So now people think of Crocs and they think of total customization.
Yeah.
Like I got something that I can wear all the things I geek out about or all the things I love. If it's flowers, I can have a bunch of different colored little flowers all over the thing. If it's if it's
Pokemon or
Minecraft, you're super into Minecraft. You got a little creeper guy that's on there. Whatever it is, right? You're communicating. It's like people that get into wearing pins and buttons on hats and stuff like. You're communicating to the world. This is what I geek out about. This is what I'm into, right? So that's Crocs.
And that's, in the fashion world, like they really dominated that, even to the point where Vans created their own Crocs, really kind of more on the functionality, where they had like this plastic or foam shoe, wherever it's made out of, and you could spray it off, and they pretty much copied the Crocs model but made it look like a Vans. So that's one way where you've had this brand change its perception, and the market really, thanks to fashion and trends, it really adapted to that. So then looking at how the perception of, let's say, like a personal brand or someone famous like Nicolas Cage, how that can evolve and transform over time, because he's had a very, very interesting career. And how people really do perceive him. It comes back to strategy.
And in some of our previous episodes about rebrand, we've talked about like, you don't do it just because you're bored of it, right? That's not a reason to rebrand. You're not, we've had the same logo for 4 years, so we need to change it. Those are silly reasons. And we talked in more depth about what are some of the reasons, but it all starts with having a strategy and understanding what about the brand you are going to shift and change as part of the rebrand, and doing it in a way that is going to pivot that perception, but it encompasses so much more than just redesign the logo.
Yeah, and that does, you have to look at, okay, where has the brand been? What's the current perception of it? Are there any kind of gold kind of nuggets you can salvage from the perception and lead it into that new pivot? Because really, I don't think a brand should rebrand unless there's going to be a strategic repositioning or even a full pivot for the brand itself, or you're just doing it for kicks and giggles, and that's not going to really do anything. So, when you look at Crocs, or heck, even Nicolas Cage, it's like you look at what his career became, where he was kind of, people would post memes of him, and it was funny, and it was kind of, they're almost mocking his past of his career, except for National Treasure, because that was his like best role. But he became almost like this like icon, where it was ironically funny in a way. It was kind of this Jeff Goldblum weird kind of perception of him. And now he came out with that one movie, what was it called? The Incredible...
Oh, the bearable weight of
fame or something like that.
Yeah, I forget.
And Pedro Pascal's in it. But he fully leaned into, like, you look at the strategy of it, is that he leaned into this perception of him, of this kind of dorky actor and all these things. And then that movie then blew him up because it showed a lot of diversity in his acting and just kind of his skill. And then it reignited his career in such an interesting way. And you see this with, celebrities when they break out of a kind of casting pit of always having the same role. Or you even look at it with brands where you can look at what you have, and like Scott said, being strategic and being very deliberate of going, okay, this is our current state. How do we transform and change that state to actually that perception that we're either aspiring for, or again, where the market's going?
Yeah, and you brought up a great point. By the way, National Treasure is not the best Nicolas Cage movie. Raising Arizona is the best one. Anyway, but you brought up a great term, and I wanted to talk about that because you said it goes from this state to another state, and that's when we're changing the perception of the brand, it literally is meaning that the business, right, itself, there's something about the business that is changing and transforming its state. And you mentioned at the top of the podcast about bringing up thermodynamics and that whole notion of what is required to change a state. And it's not just the outward appearance, right? There's things like changing the state of water into ice, or ice melting it back into water. Changing the state involves thermodynamics and changing of energy, right? Reilly, you're kind of all about this little subject.
And so when you think about energy, it's like you can't create energy. You can transform energy and change it, but you can't create it. So same thing, like you've heard us say, or even on our book, we talk about you have a brand whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
That is established. You're not creating the brand out of thin air. You're not doing those things. But just like energy, it's a constant and it's there. But you can help navigate and manipulate it and transform it to a different kind of state of energy or perception in that way. And your brand can help kind of take that form, whether that is water to ice or, to vapor. It's like you're helping this actually come along to the state that you want, or even with like energy for that matter, is that you have energy that changes from the sun grows the food, you eat the food, and then it's burned and turned into caloric energy, and you use it to move a heavy object. It's like that energy goes all the way through that whole system. So the same thing with your brand. When you think about that perception, right when someone engages with your business, that perception is already percolating and forming, and that energy is there. So you being able to help go, no, I want them to take this perception and it should be more in this arena, or I want them to define it more this way. And that goes everything from categories and the messaging you use to actually how you present the brand and how you actually position yourself in the market. If you're like, I want to change this into, let's say you have solar energy and you want to change it into battery storage or something, it needs to be converted. There has to be a conversion that happens for that transformation. So think about your brand that way, is that if your perception is this certain state, then transforming it to whatever that aspirational kind of state of a perception is, what do you need to get there? And a lot of times with clients, like helping them find those stepping stones to go that way. That could be pricing strategy, that could be new packaging, a new brand identity, and most importantly, a new positioning and strategy to help them get to that goal. It's like being able to go, okay, if we're trying to accomplish, X, what steps do we need to take along the way, and what tactics can we deploy to get there, to create that transformation, to go from this to that, which is the ultimate goal of a rebrand.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, we always go back to with your brand of having clarity and consistency and creativity to allow yourself to stand out and make a difference. And then when you're coming to the point of needing to reframe that, and this goes back to why there's a strategy, because there's a reason to rebrand, because the state of the business, the state of your market, maybe you're having to do things different than you did 5 years ago, because guess what? Technology advances, things change. It's like, so as markets change, as industries change, as consumerism and consumer habits change, businesses are always having to slowly evolve. And kind of back in the day when, man, I grew up in the day when it was just bricks and mortar. And then we had the birth of the internet, and then all of a sudden it became like, well, every business needed to have a website, and every website then needed to have e-commerce, and then all these other things. And industries had to shift and pivot and change with that. And ones that didn't died away. And so I think, and the ones that did were able to pivot and change and survive and rebrand if need be. And that's really what it is. I think the visual component of rebranding, changing the logo, it signals that there's a change. Right. But that's where people fall short if they just think, rebrand is just, I need to freshen up my brochure, my business cards, and my logo and my website. But nothing else is changing. Then you're not announcing, you're not signaling to the audience in the market space that there's something new and improved about you. Yeah. You're the same business. You just look nicer, prettier. Now maybe it works together. Like obviously, an amateurish, poorly designed logo is going to limit the a number of responses a potential audience might have, a consumer might or not gauge if your business doesn't look legit enough. But you can make a great business look better, and you might get more potential customers coming to them. But if the business responds in an amateurish way, in a poor way, it doesn't match its visuals, that falls short too. So it's it really comes down to the state of the business, and then the rebrand helps signal, and it helps that pivot that the business is trying to make.
Yeah, it's like
to signal to a new and expanded audience or a different audience or whatever it is that it's trying to change and pivot.
It's like the water to ice analogy, that if you're still water and you're advertising and signaling, look, we're ice now, we're ice, and you have a new logo that has ice, but your business is still in the water state, it's like that transformation isn't actually there. That rebrand may have kind of been topical, and it may have been a logo, or it may have been this, or something that you can then go, hey guys, we completed a rebrand for this quarter, yay, and you can pat yourself on the back. But the transformation didn't actually happen because the strategy wasn't in place. And so kind of, recapping, it's like the fallacy of rebrand in the business world, in my experience, from what I hear from businesses and you read in books and on blogs and everything, it's like it's tossed around left and right, and it's lost its value on more the strategy and gotten too focused on becoming just like a checklist item where, okay, we did a rebrand. And to me, it's like that loses the whole vision and the whole long-term play of it. And like we always talk about, it's like brand is long-term. Brand isn't a short-term ROI or anything like that. It's like it's long-term mindset. It's an investment, and you're investing in the company to be able to better provide value to your customers. And going into our next example is like Lego, is that Lego has made a full transformation from what it was when it almost went bankrupt. And now it's become this licensing IP empire where they have connections with everything from the wizarding world to, Star Wars and Marvel and I don't know,
Disney.
everything.
And, I mean, yeah, like
and
now, the video game with Sony with Horizon, Horizon Dawn,
movies,
there's the video games, right? All of those things. It has gone from just a little piece of plastics that literally at the core has not changed. I mean, I grew up in the early 70s with Legos, and it was the same type of blocks. And yes, they started introducing more, like for some of their custom sets, and Star Wars started introducing like these diagonal. And so, but those sets are still built on the core pieces. But what Lego's blown up on is now, they've branched in the video game market. They've branched their sets. If they weren't able to put out intellectual property sets, it would be, you get a car set and going, okay, it's just a standard car. It's a generic car. It's a generic house. It's a generic airplane. Now it's like, oh, that's the Marvel airplane. Oh, that's the, that's the Ferrari car. Or that's the, this is the Star Wars vehicle, whatever it is. And that's what allows them the flexibility, because they changed and really realized the power of allowing Lego to almost be a platform that other internet properties want to, because guess what? They're profiting from, Lucasfilms profits from all the Star Wars themed Lego sets being sold, because Lego said, hey, we'll do it. Let's collaborate with, and as a company, that was a good pivot for them.
The brands are being drawn towards them because they've created such a great platform and such an strong brand where people want to be associated with it. The black packaging, architectural and all high end, and those things are like $120 each. And you got the Disney ones that my girls buy all the time, and it's like those things they have a high price point because they've been able to position themselves in the market and elevate the brand. Like Scott was saying, now they're this desirable platform for all these other brands wanting to be associated. They have a 3-story
Lego store in downtown, Manhattan. and I think of like Lego stores. Before it was like, you want Legos, you go to Toys R Us back in the day, right? Now when you want Legos and you want a full set, go to the Lego store. If you got one near, that's because that's where you're going to have everything. Whereas you go to Walmart, you go to Target for Legos. Yeah, it's whatever they have on their shelves. But there's the mothership store, right? And that wasn't around when back in the day. Let's talk. While we're on the point of rebrands and successful ones, right? With Lego now, but granted, Lego didn't necessarily. That was one where they didn't like the rebrands happen. That doesn't mean they had to invest in the visual overhaul.
No, yeah.
In a sense, rebranding can mean just internal shifts in the business, right? Without external, because they're changing the state of the business. And eventually the brand will adapt to that. But you don't necessarily, like if you're like, oh, well, we need to do online. We didn't do online, but now that means we have to shell out the money to visually overhaul everything. No, not necessarily.
And that's a good point, because if we define brand, that brand is perception, and you take the word rebrand, is like, isn't that just to re-perceive something?
Yeah.
To reframe how someone's perceiving it currently, or help them have a different perception and adjust that. So that's a really good point to bring up.
Like, guess what? We personally rebrand every New Year's, January 1st. What's your New Year's resolution? Oh, I want to lose weight. I want to, you know what? I want to be a nicer person. I want to, I want to be more active. Or, oh, hey, I want to pick up this hobby.
Yeah.
In a sense, we personally rebrand. And anytime we do a personal makeover, you change your, ladies, you can, or got men, anybody do an extreme haircut and even color change, right? That's a rebrand. That's a personal brand. You're communicating to someone else a new style. There's a newness to you, right? There's all that. But while we're on talk, because something just came to my both of our eyes yesterday, since we're on the topic of rebrand, you can also rebrand and it can be a complete debacle.
Yeah. So Jaguar just rebranded, and it's a bit of a left turn for this automaker.
Jaguar used to be high end, perceived, right? Auto manufacturer of high end luxury cars. I mean, I remember in the 80s, my uncle made a lot of money in commercial development driving this sweet Jaguar. And now if you look, it looks like you said it looks like they're trying to be like Motorola or something, like just the all the colors, that their type treatment looks like Sunrun, which is a solar company. I mean, it is the weirdest. I'm left speechless, and I don't know what the brand is trying to do or where they're going, but I don't know. I don't get it.
So like we've talked about on the previous episode, I think I talked about Honda, and Honda's they've rebranded where their word mark, but it's all in kind of working towards their move to EV and kind of more of these like, techie vehicles and things like that. And Honda it was an all right job, but it's like Jaguar, like we were saying, is like, it looks like the Motorola. Specifically, it reminds me of the type used on Motorola's Razr, on the Razr wordmark. It reminds me of that so much, and it's so generic, and it feels like a mobile phone or something. And
telecommunications company, not.
Well, and it's amazing because they threw out. Jaguar was a prestigious.
There's no elegance. There's no sexiness to it.
Sexy, sleek brand. Even the Jaguar's body was like very aerodynamic and just like it felt sleek and cool, and now it just feels it lost all personality. I doubt this thing will last more than 18 months. I think they'll revert.
And if you're listening right now, just go to YouTube, type in Jaguar, and because it just dropped this trailer, and it doesn't even show the cars. It's more like the brand reveal.
Yeah,
it's very colorful. There's a lot of eclectic fashion people. So and I'm not dismissing the commercial itself. It's well done. And its messaging, it just does not match the Jaguar brand at all. And even from what preliminary of what we've been seeing, the brand and design community is kind of going, what the heck? So this isn't just Reilly's and I, but if you're wanting to give context to what we're talking about, just go to YouTube and type in Jaguar, and
Well, and I'm really curious how this rebrand, they have a lot of hype behind it and all that, but I'm like, the existing Jaguar audience who purchased those vehicles for a lot of the reasons that we're saying, there's legacy, there's heritage behind the brand, it's sexy, and it just speaks
notoriety.
And then what are they going to think? The existing audience who actually buy, it's like when Bowflex, when they rebranded, where it just kind of lost its like, it's
cool factor.
Yeah, it loses this edge to it.
Yeah.
But one of the last ones I want to bring up that was an amazing rebrand and positioning was Stanley. And that's that cup that you see everywhere.
Not the tool company.
Not the tool company, but those big cups you see in Starbucks, Target, everywhere. And they were founded in 1913, and they actually were making coolers and a lot of outdoor equipment and all that time. For most of their company history, making very just...
So they were probably way back in the day, they were the big competitor probably against Coleman. Because Coleman's been around for, the 40s, 50s, 60s, all that stuff, the 70s. We grew up with Coleman, right? And there was another brand on the market, Stanley.
Which means that, they had the whole thermal protection and cooling factor probably nailed down with their materials and everything. But then they come out with this cup, and they had an agency help kind of reposition because the cup started getting traction. And so they leaned into it. And now that cup has become, it's massive. I think the cup alone in like 1 year made more money than what the company made like in its whole history. Like, it's insane what the cup has done and how it's caught on, not only as like a fashion piece, but now they have these collaborations with Starbucks, with Target, where they're releasing limited editions. It's kind of like the Lego thing, where now it's become so desirable that these other brands want on board with it.
Yeah.
They're teaming up with stuff, and they're doing limited edition releases. And, again, that they did refine their brand, and they kind of just helped reposition it. And I think they still sell some of the other coolers and stuff, but they went through and rebranded and repositioned strategically along a strength that they had.
Yeah, yeah. Brand is about perception. So rebranding is about changing the perception of the brand. And as soon as you understand that, you realize that there has to be more to the rebrand than just a fresh coat of paint. There has to be. For it to be a successful rebrand and to do its job. Otherwise, you're going to go through the process of a new coat of paint, and your business is not going to grow, change, merge, pivot, whatever it might need to do that's maybe creating it to feel stagnant and feeling like, oh, I just need a fresh coat of paint, and then we'll be good.
Right.
So once you start framing it that way, it kind of falls into place.
Yeah, strategy is everything. And the Jaguar might be the new Nicolas Cage in this case, but really thinking about how your business has grown, where your brand is and its current perception, and then going, okay, how can I strategically move from here?
Yeah.
How do I push that further?
Yeah. Well, anyway, we thank you guys for choosing to listen to us gab. And for those that check in on all the episodes, we love you even more. So thank you for your time and hearing us out.
Yes, thank you so much. And until the next round of Brandy,
Cheers.